When we started to talk about the history show, the role of art in today's society kept bouncing back. Remember the Peace Biennial at the Hamburger Kunstverein in 1985, when there was a possibility to think and act politically through art. Today, we are in a similar position. Surprisingly, one of the key practices artists embrace today are participatory, right? Remember that half a century ago, in the 1960s, participatory practices were thriving. I'm not talking strictly about art here. But within 40 years, roughly from 1968 to 2008, from a social revolution to the financial collapse, the neoliberal socio-economic agreement became dominant and participatory practices were gradually dismantled. Today, we know that the governments alone are unable to address the complex challenges cities face in the transition to becoming more resilient. One of the biggest challenges we face is to restore people's trust in collective decision-making. After decades of having a kind of artificial participation imposed on us from above, we are often reluctant to collaborate with outsiders. Genuine participatory practices such as Das Archipel, however, are being reborn in community-based projects. You walk along the Währingkanal in Wilhelmsburg, and there it is, unexpectedly, a platform floating on the water. 4 pontoons, a floating bridge, people on the island, doing things, or just being there. With the Archipel project, we want to create a platform on which potentially anything can take place. A platform in the public space where anybody that has the desire to do something can make this the place for it. The project is a political schoolroom, a laboratory for testing methods of self-organization at a time when we are trying to find new ways of coexistence beyond the neoliberal social and economic agreement. The question is, how do we see our role in the city, a city we love, but also want to change? The call for politics and love seems naive and desperate. We use the concept of a hypothetic political love to trigger a discussion about solidarity. We need a new form of solidarity. The feeling of loneliness, of individualism, of personal failure or personal success seems dominant in society. A feeling of class belonging seems utopian. Too often, solidarity in a bigger scale is only created by those who construct the other, the outside, the one that is not like oneself, the one who oneself positions themselves against. Through opposition, one experiences a feeling of togetherness with those who are the same. In search for a new concept of solidarity, we have to emphasize the power of difference. The idea of politics and love contains a dialogue with the other, to be able to fight, to struggle, and to be able to take the space to do so. This approach touches almost Christian proportions of loving the other. Love is not a political concept. Love is a strong sentiment. But we can use this idea of political love and think of it as a point of view, a basis from which we can start thinking, more as a lens than an agenda. I am inspired by the fact that the initiators of Das Archipel view the project as both artistic and political. They assert the right for art to be at the very core of society. For me, art depends on culture and is a tool to change culture. Those that engage with Das Archipel use it as a tool to change culture. I'm unhappy that I can't make decisions about anything that's outside of my home. And I feel that nobody really can. But the public space ought to be public. We can use it, but we cannot decide about what it looks like or what should take place there. Not really, that is. You can go through the bureaucratic channels and in the end, not much will change. But you become a bureaucrat. I believe that we are all a product of the daily lives we live, what we take for granted and what becomes common sense. If our everyday lives make us who we are, let's make a daily life in our communities, in our public, where it becomes common sense to be able to decide about everything that's taking place. Let's create situations where we decide about what happens and how. Let's have meaningful and honest conversations about our needs, our wishes, our desires, and about our fears and doubts. Let's voice hostilities and anger. Let's start from there and see what will happen. Let's call the starting point love.